Hello everyone, I've been playing the new Age of Wonders DLC, and I've checked out the Eldritch Sovereign, and I think not only are they really good, but they're probably the best ruler type there is in the game right now. If I had to rank them, I'd say Eldritch Sovereign is probably rank 1, and then Wizard King has got knocked down to rank 2, and then the Dragon Lord. And unfortunately, the champion still kind of sucks. He doesn't really have anything going on. Hopefully, for like one of the next DLCs as a free feature, they can like give the champion something interesting. But anyways, let's look at the Eldritch Sovereign. I'll just do an overview of all their like skills and abilities and stuff. So what you get to choose at the beginning here is you get to choose your choice of one of 4 weapons. And each weapon also comes with its own skill. And this skill is, these skills are all unlockable later for when you level up, so you can get all 4 of these skills, so you don't need to worry too much about missing out on any of them. It's just whichever one you're going to get unlocked at level 1. So for the Relic of Mind, you have Delirium, which gives Insanity for 1 turn to a unit, and 5 Sundered Defense and Resistance for 3 turns. Relic of Mind itself, the special thing about this is it does physical damage, but it's unblockable damage, so it's basically pure damage. It goes through defense and resistance. And all of these relic weapons, you get a 3 action point attack, but it's very long range. So you can't move, but it's very long range. It ignores line of sight penalties and has 90% accuracy. And you also have a melee attack, which it's a melee attack, but it does a little bit more damage. So if you want to like finish off a unit, you can use your melee attack. But with these guys, most of the time you want to stand like really far back because they're kind of squishy and they have like a lot of support abilities you're going to be using. So anyways, the special thing about the Relic of Mind is that it's unblockable damage. There's also the Relic of Flesh, and the thing that makes this one unique is, unlike the Relic of Mind, it's not unblockable, so it is going to be reduced by resistance, but it will give poison and decaying when you attack with the ranged attack. The melee attack does not do anything special, but it does a little bit more damage at 20 blade damage. The Relic of Havoc is fire damage, and it inflicts a random negative status effect. And you also get Eldritch Phase, which is a pretty nice phase ability. It costs no action points at all. The Relic of the Flesh one gets Eldritch Rituals, which is not a very good thing to get at the very beginning of the game. And then the Relic of Cosmos, this one does a bunch of different damage types, and it does more damage it does more damage than the other relics. But it doesn't do any like special status effects or anything. This is 18 damage, so it's about 25% more than the Relic of Mind, so it's better against units that are very low resistance, but against units with high resistance, it's going to be a little bit worse on damage than Relic of the Mind. Overall, for all of these relics, I think Relic of Mind is the best one, because I'd rather just do like more damage straight up than do status effects and have to wait a bunch of turns. I'd rather just kill the unit now. And more importantly, it's the ability that you start with at level 1, Delirium. So this is a 90% chance of inflicting Insanity. So basically for 1 turn that unit is going to be on your side and it's going to be attacking the enemies. And it also gets Sundered Defense 5 and Sundered Resistance 5 for 3 turns, so you can just kill it after the Insanity ends. This is basically the best spell you're going to have. This is like the best thing a hero can possibly be doing at level 1 realistically. So this is the skill that I'd want to have unlocked at level 1. Whereas, like, if you look at the Relic of Cosmos that also does damage, this Astral Wisp ritual, it kind of sucks. So it's just a summon spell that you use on the world map, and you summon an Astral Wisp, which is not like a great unit or anything. Like, I guess it's okay. It only has 45 health, and it's a battle mage, and it does 9 damage. But the thing is, it costs Thralls, and Thralls are kind of hard to get at the beginning of the game, so you're not even going to be able to use this spell anyways at level 1, so it's kind of just worthless. Whereas the Relic of the Mind has a very strong spell, so this is the one I like to choose. Alright, so when we get into the game here, and we check out our Eldritch Sovereign leader, we'll notice that there's a new skill tree, the Eldritch Sovereign skill tree. These 4 skills here, Astral Wisp Ritual, Delirium, Eldritch Phase, and Eldritch Rituals, are the ones that you get for free at the beginning of the game, depending on which weapon you chose. So the Astral Wisp Ritual, like I said previously, I don't really think this is very good, because you just get a kind of lame unit, honestly. It is required for this Astral Siphoner Ritual, and this one's a little bit better. It's costly at 5 Thralls and 200 casting points, but you get a tier 3 unit, the Astral Siphoner. This unit's pretty interesting. It's a fighter unit, but unlike most fighter units, this one does a 1 action point attack similar to like charge units usually, and it does 17 damage and then does an additional 13 of a random element, and it also causes disruption. So the only reason I would really take this Astral Siphoner ritual, or take the Astral Wisp ritual, is to unlock this Astral Siphoner ritual. If you want to play with these guys, obviously don't like research and don't waste the skill points getting this if you aren't going to be summoning these guys and using them in their army, but like they're pretty decent. They've also got the pole like the constrictors do, and they've got Astral Membrane, which can have a chance to stun melee attackers, so pretty good units overall. And there's the Delirium spell. This one's really good because you base 90% chance to inflict insanity, and you're inflicting a lot of thunder defense and resistance for 3 turns. So, alright, this will make you do extra damage, and it's also an extra -10 status resistance. So you can kill things pretty easily if you get this off on them. Eldritch Phase is a pretty good phase spell. You teleport, it costs no action points. I think you know what phases do, right? And then you can unlock Eldritch Phase 2. This is also cool. Basically all it does is it's 2 extra range. I don't know if it's like really needed. I don't know if it's really worth the skill point in most cases, but if you have extra skill points, I guess you can pick this up. I would definitely recommend getting at least 1 rank in it though, right? Pretty important. Eldritch Rituals, it'll give your leader 10 hit points, and it'll also unlock the Dark Knowledge Ritual and the Mesmerizing Ritual. So you'll get these thralls as you like kill units. They're sort of like souls, but they're more rare. So if you've played a Necromancer in this game, you know what it's about. And you can basically trade these thralls for knowledge or for draft if you get this. So whether you want to get this is depending pretty much on whether you want to actually use these rituals. You have Desperate Anguish. Target enemy will lose 30 morale and become stunned for 1 turn, and then if it's unsuccessful, it loses 15 morale instead. Honestly, I think there's probably better skills that you can be casting during your turns than this one, so I don't really get it. Eldritch Influence, this is really important. Get this as soon as you can, because it's a free extra 4 Imperium, and it's 15 world map casting points and combat casting points. Imperium's the best resource in the game, so you definitely want this. And then the world map casting points and combat casting points are really nice as well. Definitely going to help you a lot, so this one's a priority to get. You also can get an extra 6 and another 15 casting points from Eldritch Influence too, so yeah, try and get these skills as soon as you can. Next is Phantasmal Ritual. So you'll get an extra 10% damage on your magic attacks, and basically everything your Eldritch Sovereign is going to be doing is magic attacks. Even their melee attack is magical. So that's just extra 10% damage, and it gives you a spell that you can use in your spell book, and it will do 20% of damage to the enemy army, and they'll lose 3 status resistance until the end of next combat. An interesting thing to note about this spell is that it's until the end of next combat, whereas most world map spells only last for 1 turn, so that makes this a little bit better. And obviously, like, getting rid of status resistance is pretty good, so I would recommend picking this up. And you can also learn an improved version of this, the Mass Phantasmal Ritual. This one's a little bit less effective, as it only does 15% of their max HP and damage, and they only lose 2 status resistance, but it has a huge like range, so it's all enemy units in the target province and all adjacent provinces. So this is like basically half a person's city if you use this. And then you'll get another magic attacks deal 10% damage, so this is definitely worth picking up, very strong. Then we have the Quickening Ritual. Your hero itself will gain 20% extra evasion against ranged attacks and magic attacks, which are also ranged. And you will learn another spell in your spellbook, the Quickening Ritual, which will make all units in the friendly army gain very fast movement for 2 world map turns. And this very fast movement is not just on the world map, it's also in combat. So this is a pretty good spell. Definitely great because you can buff an entire army with it, even outside of combat. And then there's this finisher spell, is Tentacled Escape. When the unit dies in combat, it escapes to the void instead and returns at the end of the combat if victorious. So this is basically just Resurgence. It's just Resurgent, but tentacle themed. And when you're playing, most people usually play, I think by default it's on, is Hero Resurgence. And so if you're playing with the default options of having Hero Resurgence on, this doesn't really do much for you. It's really good if you have Hero Resurgence off, but most people, this probably isn't going to do anything for you, really. Once you've gotten all the skills you need from the Eldritch Sovereign part of the tree, you can go into Battle Magic. You actually don't have even the option for going Warfare, because this guy is basically all magic. All your stuff is magic attacks. You don't have any like physical or anything, so they just disabled the tree entirely. There's some really strong stuff in the Battle Magic tree. So first of all, Channel Power is going to be really good because you'll get some very strong spells from your signature skills that can be powered up by Channel Power. So you definitely want to take that, and I would definitely recommend taking the Magic Craft because your magic attacks will gain some damage, accuracy, and most importantly, they'll ignore status resistance. And the Eldritch Sovereigns often have a lot of stuff that they need to bypass status resistance for. They'll do like a lot of mind control stuff. So this is super important. And also like Arcane Strength too. So Distant Evocation is also good. Alright, so now on to the hero skills, or the signature skills. So for your first signature skill at level 4, you get the choice between 3 things: Madcaster, Mindbreaker, and Fleshweaver. Madcaster, you gain Chaos Pulse, and this will have all enemies in a 1 hex radius have one of these effects at random. So it can turn them into a tier 1 animal, do fire damage, give them insanity for 3 turns, blind them, lower their morale, freeze them. You can turn them into a gremlin under your control after they die, give them 5 stacks of electrified, or just heal them for 10 hit points. So how good this spell is highly dependent on which thing you roll, right? Like this one, if it's like a tier 5 or a tier 4 and you turn it into an animal, this is like pretty good, but it only lasts 1 turn, so you'd have to kill it during that turn, I think. So that one's not great. Sustain 20 fire damage. Honestly, there's stronger stuff. Gain insanity for 3 turns. This is the one that you're going to be hoping for. Like, this is very strong right here. Become blind, who cares? Suffer morale, who cares? Freezing them would be very nice, definitely. This one, who cares? Gain 5 electrified. I guess it's like pretty good damage, but... And then obviously you don't want to heal them. So overall, I don't think this is like a super strong spell because only like really insanity and the frozen one are really good. And then you also get Expert Channeling, which your spells cost 30% less mana. Like, who cares? Like, casting spells is not going to be a huge amount of your mana, like, other than summoning spells, right? But this doesn't work for summoning spells, so this is kind of shit, too. Then you have Mindbreaker. This one's my favorite, honestly. Elder Truth. The target has a base 70% chance of being inflicted with madness until the end of combat, and if unsuccessful, it inflicts insanity for 1 turn. So madness is basically just permanent insanity, and they also get 5 physical damage at the end of each turn. And then even if you don't get it, you're at least giving them insanity for 1 turn. So this is basically better than a stun, right? Insanity means that they're basically dominated, they're on your side, and they'll attack the enemies. So even if it's unsuccessful, it's basically just a 100% chance of stun, and if you are successful, you're basically dominating them to your side or like converting them for the rest of the match. So that's extremely strong. And then you also have the second spell, which is abilities ignore 3 status resistance. And obviously, like, this is really strong, especially when you combine it with all the battle magic skills that have your attacks bypass magic resistance. So I think Mindbreaker is like a very strong choice. And then there's Fleshweaver. You gain possession, which can empower your units to deal 40% extra damage, and they have Resurgence, so after they die, they'll come back at the end of combat as long as you win. But then the unit dies when the timer expires after 2 turns. So there's probably like some uses for this. It's not a terrible skill because you do get your unit back, so it doesn't like permanently kill them because of the Resurgence. And you get 2 turns of 40% extra damage, and also this skill doesn't cost action points to use. But you're going to need a unit that can really take advantage of this, like something with good AoE or something, because I don't think most units are going to be, especially early game, I don't think most units are going to be worth killing them after 2 turns just for 40% extra damage. And then you also get Fleshweave, which at the start of combat, you conjure 2 Fleshlings, and these Fleshlings are basically, they just run in and then they explode and die. And they do 20 damage, and they give people bleeding and status vulnerability. Now, depending on which one of these you choose, your level 12 signature skill will be different. So these will be upgraded when you're higher level. At level 8, your signature skill will give you the choice of one of your Tomes of Sorcery. And so these Tomes of Sorcery, they will give you, at the start of combat, you'll get one of these 3 abilities randomly, and then every 4 turns you lose the ability and you gain a different one from this tome. So all of these spells and all of these tomes are global range. You see here 99 range, and like this one says 0 range, but it's actually still global because you just cast it on yourself and it chooses random units to hit. And that's true for all of these tomes here. So if we look at the other tome, it's like 99 range, 99 range. Right? Okay, so let's look at the Tome of Sorcery. So this one is basically just like the damage tome, if you just want to do like straight up damage mostly. So this, it does 8 of 3 different types, so 24 damage. And it does it in a 2 hex radius with global range. And like I said before, you can use channel power, so it's 50% extra damage if you channel power, and then you're doing global range, 2 hex radius of a lot of damage. And then the next one, this targets 3 to 4 random enemy units, potentially the same unit, which is interesting, and it gives them 4 of these 3 types of damage, so 12 damage. And then the spell repeats at the start of your turn for the next 3 turns. So obviously this one, if you're going to get it at all, you kind of want to get it early at the beginning of the fight, because otherwise, like if you're using this after 4 turns, it's not going to, you're not going to get like the full effect of it. And then the third spell, Astral Rift, you can conjure either an Astral Siphoner or an Astral Serpent. And it'll last for 3 turns like most combat summons, again with global range. So these are both pretty good units. They're both tier 3 fighter units, so they're pretty nice to summon a tier 3 behind the enemy lines like that. The next tome is the Tome of Arcfire. This one is similar to the other spell because it's 2 hex radius again, but it does a little bit less damage. It does 8 less damage, but you make fire and lightning hazards that I guess will give people burning and electrified. This one you target the enemy unit and it jumps to 3 other units within 4 hexes, and they gain 3 burning and 3 electrified. So basically, instead of repeating every turn, this one is going to give them a bunch of status effects. These status effects do more damage than the other thing would do, but you also have to keep in mind that the enemy could be cleansing off these status effects, so I do think it's like a little bit worse than Astral Storm. And then the last spell in this tome is Arcfire Weapons. It gives the all friendly units in a 1 hex radius get 2 fire damage, 2 lightning damage, and a 50% chance on their attacks to inflict both burning and electrified. The Forgotten Tome of Pestilence, this one is like very focused around putting diseases on the enemies. So you have this one. This one only targets a single unit, but it does quite a lot of damage at 45, and it will give them for 3 turns decaying, poisoned, and diseased. Then there's Mass Plague. This deals damage in a 2 hex radius, and it will give a base 90% chance of them all getting diseased, as well as doing 18 blight damage. And then the last one, Debilitation. Enemies units in a 1 hex radius for 3 turns gain 3 Sundered Defense, 3 Sundered Resistance, and 3 Weakened. So this is pretty good because it obviously weakens these enemies. This is an AoE too, and it's not a chance of happening. It's 100% chance, regardless of status resistance. You're going to give them a lot of status effects, and you're going to be reducing their status resistance by 6, which will help you land some of your other skills that these guys have. The next is the Tome of Blessings. You get Renew, which just heals all units in a 1 hex radius for 25 hit points. You get Blessed Champion. For 3 turns, your 1 friendly unit will get 3 Strengthened, 3 Bolstered Defense, 3 Bolstered Resistance, and heal 15 hit points. Blessed Judgment. In a 2 hex radius, enemy units sustain damage, become condemned until the end of combat, and friendly units that are also caught in the blast will gain Zeal till the end of combat and heal 8 hit points. Forgotten Tome of Curses. So this one is about like putting hexes on units, and these hexes do something bad to them whenever they get attacked. So this one, it'll do the 15 damage to enemies in a 1 hex, and they'll gain Frost Hex, which will give them a 20% chance of becoming frozen for 1 turn whenever they're attacked. I don't know if this is a base 20% chance, so it's lowered by status resistance, or if this is just a 20% chance no matter what, because it doesn't say base status, or it doesn't say base chance here, it just says 20% chance, so I'm not entirely sure. This one has Fire Hex, it's basically the same, but instead of freezing you, it has a 50% chance you'll get an extra 8 fire damage, and the Necro Hex, when you die, you become a decaying zombie. So as for which tome you want to pick, I think that if you have a army that is very heavy into magic damage, the best tome is probably the Tome of Pestilence, because this tome, it has like decent damage and stuff, but it also has all its things give disease, and disease will give the unit -4 resistance. So if you're doing a ton of magic damage with your army, then the -4 resistance will be really good. If you have like an army that's more mixed between physical and magic damage, or more physical heavy, then I think the Tome of Sorcery is just like an all-around great pick. You can do tons of damage, you get like a summon, it's just very versatile in general. Tome of Arcfire is also pretty good. And then for the Tome of Blessings and the Tome of Cursing, I think these two tomes are not very good at all. So like the Tome of Curses, these are all just like 1 hex things, and they do very little damage, right? Like 15 damage in a 1 hex, 10 damage in a 1 hex. And a lot of these Necro Hex things, you have to be attacking the unit to get any effect at all, and they aren't super strong. Like look at this one, you have to kill the unit, and then all that happens is it becomes the worst unit in game, a decaying zombie. So it's just not great. And then the Tome of Blessings has like some support sort of abilities, if we look at it. 1 hex radius and heals 25 temp hit points. This, you might think this is kind of good, but like realistically, how often do you have like a bunch of units next to each other that all need to heal 25 hit points? Like usually units are getting like focused down and killed. So I don't think you're going to get like a perfect 5 or 6 units getting 25 hit points. And if you compare it to like Cosmic Barrage, where you're doing like 24 damage in a 2 hex radius, like this Renew spell seems just way weaker, right? And then there's this Blessed Champion spell. So you target a unit. This only works on 1 unit. You're using an entire turn for your Eldritch Sovereign, which has incredibly strong skills, just to buff a single unit with a bunch of stuff that you could get from like anything else, right? Like bolstering for industrials would give you, or there's like a bunch of different ways to get strengthened, and you're just healing like a tiny 15 hit points. This is not really even worth a turn on your Eldritch Sovereign. There's usually better stuff to cast, right? And then Blessed Judgment. It only does 10 damage, and the only real reason I'd want to do this is if you really need Condemned, but there's a lot of ways to inflict Condemned, especially with that new tome. I forget what it's called, like Tome of the Cleansing Pyre or something like that. And so this is also just not a great spell. So yeah, I say Pestilence if you want to do a lot of magic damage with your armies, or you can do Sorcery or Arcfire and don't get these 2 tomes. Alright, and so at level 12, you'll be getting a choice of 2 things out of 6, and the 2 that you get is depending on what you chose at level 4, so we'll go through all of these, but this is going to be the 2 if you chose Mindbreaker as your level 4. You can either get Enthraller, which will change your Eldritch Truth into Enrapturing Truth, which instead of giving them Madness, it gives them Enrapturing Domination. So instead of being insane, they are dominated and berserk. Oh, whoopsie. I think that, like, making a unit insane and making them dominated and berserk is essentially the exact same thing, pretty much, after the changes in this patch. So really all you're getting is that the unit's dealing an extra 20% damage, and I guess you don't have to kill it after it runs out of enemies to kill. And then if unsuccessful, it still inflicts insanity. So overall, this doesn't really help a whole lot. And you also gain Manipulator, which means that the following abilities target an additional target within 3 hexes of the initial target. This works for Eldritch Mind Control, Delirium, and Desperate Anguish. So this one, Mind Control for 1 turn. This one, Inflict Insanity, and the Sundered Defense and Resistance. So having these things target an additional target is really, really, really good. So I think this is strong. Even though this part of it kind of sucks, this Manipulator skill makes it worth choosing it. The other choice is you can be a Mind Devourer, and this one it changes your Eldritch Truth ability so that it is Mind Shattering Truth, and basically the difference is that this one does 20 unblockable damage. If this thing's successful, they will be insane for the rest of combat though. So do you really want to damage them if they're going to be basically on your side anyways? Like, so this doesn't seem super great either. Or you also get Mind Rend, which will make you deal 70% more damage to the targets afflicted with Madness, Insanity, Despair, and Berserk. Or other mental negative status effects. I don't know what it means by other negative mental status effects, but whatever, we'll just assume that these ones are what it is. So 70% damage is obviously a whole lot, but again, you don't really want to be focusing down anybody who you've made insane, because the insane units will be attacking your enemy instead of you, so like killing them is kind of shooting yourself in the foot. So overall, I like Enthralor a little bit better, just because like you will have Manipulator, and so instead of making one unit insane, you make 2 units insane. That's twice as many insane units, so very good. Then at level 16, if you get all the way to level 16, you get to choose another tome, one of the tomes that you didn't already pick. So I've already went over these. But anyways, let's check out the other signature skills. If we took Madcaster at level 4, we have the option of these 2 signature skills, Cosmic Caster and Havoc Caster. His Cosmic Caster will cause your Chaos Pulse to become Cosmic Pulse. So this one was the ability that gives you a whole bunch of random status effects on the enemies. And instead it will change it into a 2 hex radius instead of a 1 hex radius, and it will have one of these 3 effects. So sustain fire damage, 12 frost damage, and 90% chance to become frozen, or 18 lightning damage and 3 electrified. So it changes it from being a 1 hex, like mostly status effects, into being more of a damage spell. And you will also gain Savant Channeling, so Forgotten Tome magic abilities deal 25% extra damage. These were the tomes that you pick at level 8 and 16. So if you want your Eldritch Sovereign to be more of a like damage dealer kind of mage, rather than like turning people insane, mind controlling them and stuff, this Madcaster and like Cosmic or Havoc Caster are a lot better. Havoc Caster changes your Chaos Pulse to the Havoc Pulse, which retains all of these different status effects, but you have 2 of them occur instead of 1 of them. And you also get Chaos Channeling, which gives damage spells have a 90% chance of applying a negative status effect. So this one is more for pure damage. This one is more if you want to do a bunch of status effects. If you chose Flesh Weaver at level 4, you will have the option of either Flesh Sculptor or Puppeteer. Flesh Sculptor will turn your possession into greater possession. So this gives, instead of 40% extra damage, it does 80% extra damage, gives a bit of status resistance, basically. And it still works the same as before. Basically, your unit's doing extra damage, but it will die after 2 turns. And Flesh Weave, which was a thing that starts combat with 2 fleshlings that just run in and explode, becomes Flesh Sculpt, so you get a Flesh Abomination instead. Or you can be a Puppeteer. This will turn your possession into Puppeteer's possession. So this is the same Empower ability, but instead of making 1 of them really powerful, you're using 2. Actually 3 total, because it's the one you target and 2 additional ones. Also, your Eldritch Mind Control will turn into Puppeteer's Domination, so instead of being a 90% chance of being Mind Control for 1 turn, it is 120% chance of becoming dominated for 3 turns, so that's a pretty big improvement. Anyways, that was basically everything about the new Eldritch Sovereign ruler type.